What will your XLM actually be worth once DTCC's tokenization platform goes live? Not in theory, not with a vague maybe it reaches $10 one day, but in real dollar amounts tied directly to the exact timeline DTCC has officially published using the specific price scenarios that analysts with genuine institutional credibility are projecting. That's exactly what I'll reveal before this video ends. But first, I want to begin with something that most videos covering this topic leave until the very end. DTCC tokenization is no longer some future milestone. It has already begun. Right now, this month. Let me walk you through the precise timeline because this is the single most important piece of verified, source-backed information in this entire video, and I want to make sure it's absolutely clear. On May 27, 2026, DTCC announced it would connect its tokenization platform to Stellar, with XLM designated as the settlement token. That announcement followed an SEC no-action letter granted back in December 2025, giving DTC formal regulatory approval to tokenize a defined group of assets, including Russell 1000 equities, major index ETFs, and U.S. Treasury bills, notes, and bonds. July 2026, which means right now, this month, as you're watching, marks DTCC's launch of limited production tokenized trades. This is the first live phase, not a testing environment, and not simply a proof of concept. Limited production means real assets, real transactions, real settlement, all operating within a controlled, regulated framework. In October 2026, DTCC expands its tokenization service into a broader rollout with additional participants, higher transaction volume, and more tokenized assets. During the first half of 2027, DTCC tokenized assets become available directly on the Stellar network. That's the stage where XLM, as the settlement token, becomes operationally significant across DTCC's broader asset ecosystem. So when this video's title asks, when does DTCC tokenization go live? The answer is that it's already going live. Not next year, not someday, right now, this month. And XLM sitting at around 18 to 20 cents right now, with the fear and greed index in extreme fear territory, down from a July 2025 high of around 52 cents, is trading as though none of this is happening. That gap between what's happening with the infrastructure and what the price is doing is the entire story of why this analysis matters right now and not in 6 months after everything has already repriced. Let's understand the actual size of what's being plugged into Stellar's network. Before we continue, if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Now, let's get back to the topic. DTCC processes the vast majority of United States securities transactions. The figure you'll see across multiple institutional sources is that DTCC custodies approximately $114 trillion in assets. And the broader context, Standard Chartered has projected a $2 trillion tokenized asset market by 2028. BCG and Ripple have projected an $18.9 trillion tokenized asset market by 2033. DTCC doesn't need to tokenize anything close to all of those numbers to represent an enormous increase in the settlement activity flowing through the Stellar network. Even a fraction of 1% of a $100 trillion custody base represents numbers that dwarf the current value of XLM's entire market cap. Now, here's where I have to be genuinely honest about the value accrual. Because I think glossing over it would be irresponsible. And Crypto News, one of the more thorough publications covering this specific topic, flagged it as the central uncertainty in any XLM price projection tied to the DTCC deal. The question is this: does routing security settlement through Stellar's network actually translate into sustained demand for the XLM token specifically, or can the volume flow through while the token itself is partially or fully bypassed? Here's the honest structural answer. XLM has a fixed supply with no burn mechanism. Every transaction on the Stellar network requires a small XLM fee which goes to the network rather than being burned. The demand mechanism for XLM in the context of DTCC settlement is primarily that institutional participants need to hold some XLM to pay those fees, and that XLM may be used as a bridge asset for certain cross-currency settlements within the network. This is a real demand mechanism. It is not as direct or as proportional as some token models that explicitly burn fees or route revenue to stakers. The relationship between settlement volume and token price is real but indirect. And how indirect it turns out to be in practice is genuinely unknown until the volume starts flowing and we can actually observe the on-chain data. I'm telling you this not to discourage anything, but because the difference between DTCC chose Stellar and therefore XLM is going to X price versus DTCC chose Stellar and therefore the value accrual to the XLM token depends on specific mechanics we can observe but can't fully predetermine this. The difference between a responsible thesis and an oversimplified one, both can produce the same outcome. The investor who understands the mechanism survives the periods when it seems like the thesis isn't working because they understand what to look for. The investor who oversimplified doesn't survive those periods because they have nothing to check their belief against. Now, let's get into the actual numbers. What is your XLM worth at different price scenarios and how those scenarios connect to the DTCC timeline and what the institutional analyst community is actually projecting? First, the current baseline, XLM at 20 cents. Whatever you're holding, multiply by 0.2, and that's your current position value. 25,000 XLM, $5,000 today. 50,000 XLM, $10,000 today. 100,000 XLM, $20,000 today. 250,000 XLM, $50,000 today. 500,000 XLM, $100,000 today. 1 million XLM, $20,000 today. $2 million today. Those are your baselines. Every scenario I run from here is measured against those numbers. Now, let's run 3 scenarios that are actually grounded in something verifiable rather than pulled from excitement. Scenario 1, XLM reaches 52 cents. It's July 2025 high. This is not a prediction. It's a return to a price the asset actually reached less than a year ago, which makes it a real, historically observed price level rather than a speculative projection at 52 cents. Your position values are exactly 2.6 times their current level. 25,000 XLM, $13,000 today. 50,000 XLM, $26,000 today. 100,000 XLM, $52,000 today. 250,000 XLM, $130,000 today. 500,000 XLM, $260,000 today. 1 million XLM, $520,000 today. At 520,000 XLM, a 1 million token position is worth $520,000. At 520,000 XLM, 250,000 tokens, which costs about $50,000 at today's price to accumulate, becomes $250,000. At $520,000 XLM, the $50,000 token holder, who currently has a $10,000 position, walks away with $50,000. These are real purchasing power outcomes connected to real price scenarios with real analyst projections behind them. Scenario 2, XLM reaches $1. This is the most commonly discussed round number target in the XLM community, and it has genuine sourced analyst backing. The bullish end of 2026 price models from Crypto News, published just over a week ago, projected anywhere from $1.20 to $2.50 for the end of 2026. Crypto analysts from multiple firms have cited the DTCC integration and the OpenUSD consortium membership as catalysts that could support a $1 price during a sustained bull phase. A $1 XLM would put its market cap at approximately $34 billion, comparable to what XRP reached at its peak in 2021. 5,000 XLM, $2,000, $5,000, 50,000 XLM, $50,000, 100,000 XLM, $100,000, 250,000 XLM, $250,000, 500,000 XLM, $500,000 at 1 XLM. A 1 million token position is worth $1 million. At 1 XLM, 250,000 tokens, which costs about $50,000 at today's price to accumulate, becomes $250,000. At 1 XLM, the 50,000 token holder who currently has a $10,000 position walks away with $50,000. These are real purchasing power outcomes connected to real price scenarios with real analyst projections behind them. Scenario 3, XLM reaches $2.50, the upper end of some of the bullish 2026 models, and a plausible scenario in a sustained bull market, with the October 2026 DTCC wider launch providing a major catalyst, and the H1 2027 Stellar specific phase beginning to drive actual on-chain demand for XLM as the settlement token. 25,000 XLM, $62,500, 50,000 XLM, $125,000, 100,000 XLM, $250,000, 250,000 XLM, $625,000, 500,000 XLM, $1,250,000, 1 million XLM, $2,500,000 at $2.50 XLM. The 100,000 token holder, someone who currently has a $20,000 position at today's prices, has a $250,000 position, a fully paid off median home in most U.S. markets, a down payment on multiple properties, 3.5 years of median U.S. household income sitting in a single asset position. That is the real-world purchasing power outcome at the $2.50 scenario for a position that costs $20,000 to build right now. Now, let me address the bearish scenario honestly, because watching this without it is an incomplete picture, and I think you deserve the full picture. The bearish end of 2026 projections, also from Crypto News recent analysis, is approximately 18 cents. Meaning, if none of the catalysts convert into sustained token demand, if the DTCC integration proceeds on schedule, but does so in a way that routes settlement through XLM fees only marginally, if the broader crypto market stays in a risk-off period through the rest of the year, and if the OpenUSD consortium membership doesn't translate into additional institutional inflows, the price could be roughly where it is today at the end of 2026. That is a real scenario. The fear and greed index being in extreme fear right now, despite record high network fundamentals, shows you that sentiment. And fundamentals can be completely disconnected for extended periods. The honest assessment is this: the DTCC integration gives XLM a fundamentally different institutional backing than it had before May 27th. The July limited production launch and October wider launch create observable milestones where the market will be able to see real data on how the settlement system is functioning. The H1 2027 Stellar specific phase is when XLM's role as settlement token becomes operationally central rather than directionally confirmed. Between now and then, the price is driven by sentiment, speculation, and the market's willingness to pre-price the future, which is unpredictable and has been wrong in both directions multiple times already this year. What this means practically for anyone holding XLM right now is that the risk is not that the thesis is wrong. The publicly available evidence, the DTCC CEO statements, the no action letter, the limited production launch literally this month, the Stellar Development Foundation CEO describing the decade of institutional relationship building with the DTCC's predecessor, the Franklin Templeton Benji Fund, as the proof of concept. All of that is real and sourced and verifiable. The risk is timing, value accrual mechanisms, and whether your conviction survives the gap between the infrastructure is working and the price is reflecting it. Those can be separated by months. They can be separated by more than a year. The October 2026 wider launch and the H1 2027 Stellar integration are the two moments most likely to compress that gap, but no one can promise they arrive on schedule. Here's the single most important thing I can say after all of this analysis. The question of what your XLM will be worth when the DTCC tokenization goes live is the wrong question if you're only asking it at one price and one moment. The DTCC tokenization is going live in phases over the next 12 months. July, this month, is phase 1. October is phase 2. Each one, 2027, is the Stellar specific phase 3. What your XLM is worth depends on which phase, what the broader market is doing. How much of the value accrual mechanism is flowing through the XLM token versus being routed around it, and how much of each scenario is already priced in by the time each phase actually arrives. What I can tell you with certainty, because the math doesn't require any price prediction at all, is that the purchasing power outcomes I walked you through, 50 cents, $1, $2.50 across each of the holder tiers, are real, connected to documented analyst projections, and represent outcomes that would materially change the financial situation of anyone sitting in those positions. At $100,000, XLM is $100,000. That is the outcome that buys someone a fully paid off modest home in most of the world, eliminates the average U.S. student loan debt 3 times over, or provides 2.5 years of median U.S. income without working. The DTCC integration doesn't guarantee that outcome, but it is the most concrete piece of institutional validation this network has ever had, and it is going live right now. And the price at 18 to 20 cents has not reflected it in any sustained way. Whether you use that information to accumulate, to hold, or to simply understand what you already own more clearly is entirely your own decision. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you the math, the timeline, and the honest uncertainty sitting alongside both so that the decision you make is yours. If going through the actual dollar outcomes, tier by tier, connected to a real institutional timeline, rather than a vague, bullish narrative, is useful to you while watching this, hit like. It genuinely helps put this kind of honest analysis in front of more people, instead of the version that just says DTCC chose Stellar and leaves you to fill in the rest yourself. Subscribe if you want the October launch and the H1 2027 Stellar integration covered in the same detail when they arrive, because those are the milestones worth tracking closely. Drop a comment and tell me which holder tier you're in and which of these 3 price scenarios you think is most likely to arrive first. Not which one you're hoping for, which one you actually believe the data supports. I want to see real reasoning. And if you know somebody holding XLM who doesn't yet know that the DTCC limited production launch is happening this month, not next year, send them this video before the October wider launch becomes the next piece of news they find out about after it's already priced in. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to join my free Telegram community with the link on my channel where I post my daily crypto experience and arbitrage opportunities you can't get anywhere else. This is XRP Hobart signing off.